welcome to a special BriefingsDirect Thought Leadership panel discussion on the creation of new guidance for how digital and IT professionals should approach their responsibilities. Perhaps more than at any time in the history of IT, those tasked with planning, implementation, and best use of digital business tools are being transformed into a new breed of digital practitioner. We will now explore how the Open Group is ambitiously seeking to close the gap between IT education, business methods, and what it will take to truly succeed at work over the next decade. I'm Dana Gardner, Principal Analyst at InterArber Solutions, and I'll be your host and moderator as we now examine digital business transformation and what it will take to become the next generation of enterprise leadership. With that, please join me now in welcoming our panel. We're here with Venkat Nambiar. He's Director of Business Transformation, Enterprise, and Cloud Architecture at Oracle. Welcome, Venkat.
Thank you, Dana. Good to be here.
We're also here with Sriram Sabyasan. He's Consulting Partner and Digital Transformation Practice Lead at Connexium. Welcome, Sriram.
Good morning, Dana. It's good to be here.
We're glad to have you. We're here also with Michael Fulton, Associate Vice President of IT Strategy and Innovation at Nationwide Insurance and co-chair of the Open Group IT for IT Forum. Welcome, Michael.
Thanks for having me.
And lastly, we're here with David Lounsbury, Chief Technical Officer at the Open Group. Welcome back, David.
Thank you, Dana. Happy to be here.
Dave, let's start with you. Why is this the right time for us to be reassessing and synthesizing new guidance on how IT and digital professionals should approach their responsibilities? Why now?
We had a presentation by a couple of Forrester analysts about a year ago at a San Francisco meeting of the Open Group, where they identified a change that was occurring in the market. We were seeing this convergence of forces of the success of Agile as a product management methodology at the edge, the increased importance of customer experience, and the fact that we've got radically new and less expensive IT infrastructure and IT management approaches to make that all happen at the edge. And they saw this coming together in a new kind of person who was ready to use these digital tools to actually deliver value to their businesses. And they saw this as the start of a transformation. And the Open Group looked at that challenge and stepped up by defining this activity we call our Digital Practitioners Work Group to bring together all of the necessary factors: customer experience, the ability to manage digital delivery, the ability to manage digital products, the ability to manage digital teams, delivery teams, together in one body of knowledge for how to actually be a digital practitioner, what it means for individuals to do that. So in this group, the people who are on this call have been working in that group towards that objective since then.
And is this the expansion of an earlier category of person, maybe enterprise architect, CIO, CTO, or is this something new? Are we transitioning, or are we starting something fresh?
We are in the middle of transitioning as well as creating something fresh, and I'll say why on both sides. So far, through the last few decades of computing changes, we have been chasing corporate efficiency improvement, which brought in some level of rigidity. And now we are chasing individual productivity. So the companies will have to rethink their products. So that's a change that will have to happen in the thinking of the CIO, the CFO, the CMO, or the CXO suite that we talk about. Still, many companies dabbled with the new role of a chief digital officer and chief data officer, but there is a struggle of monetization and connecting with the customers because the loyalties are not as it used to be. So we are creating a guidance that helps people transition from an old typical CIO, CFO roles into thinking about connecting to the customer, improving the revenue potentials by associating closely with the productivity of the customers, improving their productivity levels.
So Dana, this is Venkat here. So the way I look at it, and I use the word evolution, right? I mean, I concur with everything David and Sriram said. Oracle being a product company, and the specific team that I work with called Oracle Digital actually works with a lot of companies that are focusing on delivering products and services in this, what I call the market for digital market, right? And they're all about experiences. And so that's a fundamental shift from addressing specific process or specific capability requirements of organizations. Most of the SMB space or innovation space is focused on experiences, and that essentially changes the nature of the dialogue from, holistic, here's what I can do for you, to here are the experiences I can create. So the nature of the practitioner, the nature of the participant has changed from a CIO, a developer, or a consumer to digital practitioners of different interactions. So I think that is one of the main reasons why Oracle, at least from my perspective, this practitioner guide or practitioner work group becomes extremely important because now we're talking a completely different language as the market evolves and a different expectation on the market force itself. So
I think there's a couple of key shifts, and this is Mike Fulton. I think there's a couple of key shifts going on here in the operating model that are driving this change that we're seeing. So first and foremost, I think the pace of change and what's happening in organizations in the marketplace today with this shift to a customer focus, we're seeing the business requiring a lot more speed and agility. What we've historically seen the businesses ask for out of IT is efficiency and stability. And so now as we are undergoing this shift to a need for more outcomes around speed and agility, we're seeing the organizations have to fundamentally change their operating models and fundamentally change their individual skills and processes to be able to keep up with this significant shift. I would say the other thing that we're seeing that I find extremely interesting is that with the emerging technologies that are coming to bear, we're seeing brand new what's possibles that are affecting what we can do to provide business benefit to our customers in really new and interesting ways. I think you're getting a much higher bar in the context of user experience, which all organizations are having to keep up with. We call that the Apple or the Amazonification of the user experience, and organizations are having to keep up with that. But I also think that with technologies that have come up over the last few years around things like cloud computing, but also technologies that are on the near-term horizon, things like quantum computing and 5G, we're shifting from a world of scarcity when it comes to technology into a world of technology abundance. And I know Dave's talked quite a bit about this shift. Maybe he's got some insights he can add into how he thinks about this shift from scarcity to abundance when it comes to technology and how that impacts the digital practitioner.
Yeah, that's actually an interesting point. To be honest, we all see this, right? We all see the fact that you can get cloud account either with a credit card or free. There's been an explosion in the number of tools and frameworks we have to produce new software. So that old model we had of having to be very careful about aligning scarce, precious IT resources with business strategies is less important these days. It's just the bar to roll out some small IT thing is really migrated very far, very close to the edge of the organization. And that is in turn what has enabled all of this customer focus, this software is eating the world, that digital first experience. And so the result of that is we see all these new business skills emerging, or people who are previously in the business realm need to understand all these, digital skills in order to live in that world. And I think that actually is a very important point. I also think I want to reflect on the point about, Dana, you in fact introduced this podcast as, what do IT people need to know? I think, I would broaden that out quite a bit. I think this is about what do business people need to know about digital delivery. And you're going to have to get some IT on your hands when you do that. But that said, it's much, much easier now due to that abundance that Michael has just noted.
I think there's a lot of things there that are really important. I think the shift that we're undergoing through from a world of physical to information-based has led us to companies embedding technology into the products that they sell. And so the importance of digital is, to today's point, really moving from an IT functional world to a world where the digital practitioner is really embedded in every part of the business and every part of the product that the vast majority of companies take to market, from companies that historically have been very physical, like aircraft engines in GE, or oil refineries at Shell, or any number of things that you could talk to where these physical products are now, through the use of digital twins and other techniques, becoming digital replicas that provide much more information to consume and much more technology into the product that companies sell. It really creates a new world that highlights the importance of the digital practitioner.
So I know, Dana, you want to jump into the next question. We're just in the first question, but I'm just trying to, if I look at what David and then Michael and Sriram said, right? So the couple of things that come to my mind is this. One, the traditional or the sacred cows of the old are no longer sacred cows. Nobody is willing to just take a technologist's word that this is doable or not. Nobody's willing to take a process expert's word that this is doable or not. In this world of now where art of possibility stands front, meaning everybody thinks everything is possible, I just want to kind of point out, Michael said that everybody has to have a digital practitioner in their line of business or in the area of work. I almost come and say, and this is just my experience the last 4 years working here, is that every participant in any organization is a digital practitioner, both a service provider and a service consumer simultaneously, and irrespective of where they stand in an organization. So it becomes very critical that everybody recognizes what the impact of this digital market force is, and then start recognizing how their particular role has evolved or expanded to include digital components, both when they deliver value and how they receive value. So I think that is the core of what we're trying to accomplish as practitioners, to allow people to start defining and expanding their roles from the perspective of, if I am a digital practitioner, so what does that really mean, and how do I recognize the market, how do I recognize my ecosystem, and then how do I evolve to deliver value?
Thank you, Venkat. Yes, please, Sriram.
Just expanding what Venkat said right now, I'll give you a couple of examples and say how it impacts existing roles and new roles. One, now say, for example, we have intelligent fridges, intelligent cooking ovens, and ranges, which provides an insight into the manufacturer about the customer's behavior, which they never had. They were all operating on a B2B sales process. Now they have an insight into the customer. They can directly get to the customer's behaviors and fine-tune the product. But the enterprises have never built the skill set to be able to use the data and create new innovative variations to the product set. So that's one gap that we are seeing in the market. That's what this guidebook is trying to address, number one. Number two, for IT personnel, they are now having to deal with much wider canvas of things to be brought together, data sets to be integrated, because the sensors, what was thought of as an operational technology, has become part of the network of the information technology as well. What I mean is the access to accelerometers, temperature sensors, pressure sensors, they're all part of your same network. So a typical software development now will have to include understanding of the hardware behaviors that were happening in the field. So the mindset also will have to change. The canvas is wider, and people will have to think about an integrated execution model. That is fundamental for any digital practitioners to be thinking about putting it into practice and having an architectural mindset to approach them, and also deliver experience to the customer. Because at the end of the day, if you don't deliver experience to the customer, there is no revenue for the company. So your thinking pivot changes from operational efficiency or getting something over the milestone that you're thinking about on delivery to an experience and outcome for the customer.
Now, it looks like this digital practitioner topic area is applicable to larger enterprises, to small to medium-sized businesses, and would cut across industries as well as geographies. But in putting together a set of guidelines, it sounds as if there's a standardization effort underway. How important is it to make digital practitioners at all these different types of organizations standardized, or is that not the goal, or is this something that would have to be very specific and individual organization by organization?
It's a great question. So before, and at least this is my view is, before we start creating, calling out standards, I think the body of knowledge, what it looks to do, I think the body of knowledge from the practitioner work group looks to do is to collect all the different experiences, different viewpoints, and also some of the things that has worked, not worked, and overall kind of become that source of experience, if you will, so that can then eventually evolve into standards. Now, personally, do I think standards are coming? I believe so. What's the timeline with standards? It depends on the amount of experience that we're able to collect. We're able to agree that these are some of the best practices, some of the standards that we need to follow, so that any person functioning in this digital ecosystem can reasonably, successfully deliver repeatable outcomes from terms of experiences or in terms of any other objectives that they set. So, is standards important? I personally believe that yes. Is that an ultimate goal? I think it can potentially evolve into that. But I think the starting point from a focus perspective is we want to first collect knowledge, collect experience of different folks, different use cases, different points of view, so that we are reasonably able to think about what can be standardized and what needs to be evolved further.
Thank you, Venkat. Anyone else want to take a stab at defining a digital practitioner and whether that becomes something that could be a standard?
There are certain things like a basic analysis approach, decomposition, and execution models that are proven as a repeatable model. Those we can put as standards and start documenting right now. However, the way we apply the analysis approach to a financial management problem versus a manufacturing problem is a little different, and those differences will have to be highlighted. So that's what when Venkat was talking about, we are going as a body of knowledge. We are trying to paint the canvas to say how you apply these analysis methods differently under a different context is important. But if you think about Amazon is under certain regulation, a banking company as well as a retail company as well as an IT service provider company. So people who are operating within or delivering services within Amazon will have to have multiple mindsets and multiple approaches to be presented to them so that they can be efficient at their job. So right now, we are looking at some form of standardization at the analysis, decomposition, execution models, yet providing guidance for the variances that are for each of the domains. Can each domain by itself standardize? Definitely yes, and we are miles away from achieving that.
Yeah, I wanted to pick up on the point Sriram made there, and that is that this kind of digital delivery, that customer-focused, outside-in mindset, happens at organizations of all different scales. And there are things that are necessary for a successful digital delivery, that decomposition that Sriram mentioned, that might not occur in a small organization but would occur in a large organization. And as we think about standardization, we really want to focus in on what's relevant for an organization at various stages of growth or engagement or moving into this digital first view of their market, and still provide that body of knowledge, as Venkat said, that says as you evolve in your organizational complexity, as you grow, as your organization gets to be more complex in terms of the number of teams doing the delivery, here's what you need to know at each stage along the way. And the focus is going to be initially on what and not how, because as we know, while these what principles that you have to do your customer experience work, you have to manage teams, you have to treat your digital assets in certain ways. Those things are leading practices, but the tools you'll use to do them, the actual bits and the bytes, are going to be evolving very, very quickly. So we want to make sure we're at that right level of guidance to the practitioner and not so much into the hardcore tools and techniques that you use to do that delivery.
I think one of the interesting things that Dave really mentions is the way that the digital practitioner's body of knowledge is constructed. And there's a couple of key things there. One, right now we're really viewing it as a perspective on the leading practices, not necessarily of standards yet when it comes to how to be a digital practitioner. But number two, and this is a fairly unique one, is that the digital practitioner's body of knowledge does not take a standard structure to the content. It's a fairly unique approach that's based on organizational evolution. And I've been in the IT industry for longer than I would care to admit. I've never seen a standard or a body of knowledge that has taken this kind of an approach. Typically, bodies of knowledge and standards are targeted at large enterprise, and they put in place what you need to do, all the things that you need to do when you do everything perfect at full scale. Well, what the digital practitioner's body of knowledge does is it walks you through that organizational evolution from starting at an individual or a founder of a startup or somebody that's kind of two people in a garage through when you've built that startup into a team and you have to start to put some more capability around the team, up to when the team becomes a team of teams. You're starting to get bigger and bigger until you evolve into kind of a full enterprise perspective where you're a larger company that needs more of the full capabilities. And so by taking this organizational maturity or organizational evolution approach or emergence approach to thinking about leading practice, it really allows an individual to learn and grow as they step through the standard. And it helps us fit the content to you and where you're at as an individual and where your organization is at in its level of maturity. And so it's a really unique approach to walking people through the content. The content's still full and comprehensive, but it's a really interesting way to help people understand how things fit together in that bigger picture and helping people understand when you need to care about something and when you don't. If you're two people in a garage, you don't need to care about enterprise architecture. You can do the enterprise architecture for your entire company in your head. You don't need to write it down. You don't need to do models. You don't need to do all those things. If you're a 500,000 person Amazon, you probably need to have some thought around the enterprise architecture for your company because there's no way anybody can keep that in their mind and keep that straight. And so you absolutely have to, as your company grows and matures, you need to layer in additional capability. And this body of knowledge is a really good map on what do you layer in and when.
It sounds as if this individual or group of people that are going to be taking advantage of that body of knowledge as digital practitioners are going to be really essential at accelerating the maturity of organizations to a fully digital business. Given the importance of that undertaking, where do these people come from? What are some typical backgrounds? What are some skill sets? Where do you find folks, and how do you prepare them for such an important job?
You find them everywhere, straight on the site. Today's million, let's go with different category of people, right? Kids who are out of school right now are still in school. They are dabbling with products. They are dabbling with hardware. They are making things and connecting to the internet and trying to give different experiences for people. Those ideas should not be stifled. We need to expand them and help them try to convert into an operable, executable, sustainable business model. That's one side. On the far end, we have very mature people who are running businesses right now, but who have been presented with the challenge of a newcomer into the market trying to threaten them, to question their fundamental business models. So we need to be talking to both ends and providing different perspectives. As Mike was talking about, what this particular body of knowledge provides is what can we do for the new kids? How do we help them think the big picture, not just one product version out? In an industry right now, between V1 and V2, you could potentially three different competitors for your own functionality on the product that you're bringing to market. And on the other hand, enterprises are sitting in loads of cash, but not sure where to invest and how to exploit or how to thwart disruption. So that's the other spectrum we need to talk about, and the tone and the messaging are completely different. We find the practitioners everywhere. Messaging is different.
How is this then different from a cross-functional team? It sounds quite similar.
Yes. One, even if you have a cross-functional team, the execution model is where most of them fail. When I talk about a simple challenge that Squire is trying to face or trying to become, they are no longer a payment tech company. They are a hardware company, and they are also a website development company trying to solve the problem for a small business. So unless you create an organizational structure that is able to bring people from multiple business units together, multiple verticals together to focus on a single customer vertical problem, the cross-functional teams will not be able to deliver. You need a risk mitigation mindset. You need to remove a single team ownership mindset. Normally, corporates have got one person as accountable to be able to manage the spend. Now we need to put one person accountable to manage experience and outcome. Unless you bring that shift together, the traditional cross-functional team are not going to work in this new world.
Yeah. Other thoughts? Thank you, Sriram.
Yeah. So actually, I agree with Sriram, and I'll give the perspective from where we are building our organization in Oracle, right? So that's a good example. Now, obviously, when we have a huge program where we hire folks right out of college, and they come in with a great understanding of, and they represent this digital world, right? They represent the market force. They are the folks who kind of live it every single day. We joke that they're comfortable saying "I love you" over a text rather than face to face, right? And they have a very good understanding of what different technologies bring to the table. But one key thing that they do, and I find more often they lack, is the perspective or the context in which they are operating. Meaning, if I join Oracle, I need to understand what Oracle as a company is trying to accomplish at the end of the day, right? So that adding that perspective, cannot be just done by having a cross-functional team, because everybody comes and tries to stay in their comfort zone. They bring in an experienced enterprise architect. The tendency is to stay in the comfort zone of models and structure and how I have been doing things. So what the digital practitioner, we find digital practitioners everywhere, and the way we find them as digital practitioners is to allow them kind of have a structure, a place that tells them you have to add this particular perspective onto you. Like just as in millennials, you need to understand what the company is trying to accomplish so that you just can't let your imagination run all over the place, but you do need to find it at home eventually. And likewise, for a mature enterprise architect, hey, you know what? You need to incorporate these changes so that way, your experience continues to be relevant. I even look at some of the folks who are not technologists, right? Folks who are trying to understand, why should I work with IT? Why should I need an enterprise architect? So to help them answer these questions, we give them the perspective of how value they can bring from the perspective of the market forces they face. So I think that's the key way in which cross-functional teams work under certain conditions, right? But we have to set the change as an organizational change, organizational mindset change at every level, and that allows folks to function, change from a developer to a digital practitioner, an EA to a digital practitioner, a CFO to a digital practitioner. So that's really one of the things I think is a huge value that the body of knowledge is going to bring to the table.
I think it's important to understand that in today's day and age, it's not acceptable for business leaders or business members in an organization to simply write off technology and say that's for the IT people to take care of. Technology is now embedded throughout everything that we do in our work lives, and so we all need to be able to understand technology. We all need to be able to understand the new ways of working that technology is bringing to bear. We all need to understand these new opportunities for us to move faster, to move more quickly, and to react to customer wants and needs in new and exciting ways that are going to add distinct value. So I think that, to me, is the exciting piece about this. Is it's not just IT folks that have to change into digital practitioners. It's business folks across every single organization that also have to change and morph, bringing both sides closer together.
That's a really important point, because this word digital gets stuck on everything these days. It's called digital washing, right? But I think there is, in fact, you put your finger on the fundamental transformation. And when an organization realizes that it's going to interact with its customers through either the digital twins, it's a digital access to physical products and services, or purely digital delivery, if you've got some piece of information or data that you're going to send to the customer, that the customer's interaction through that, the customer's experience of that bringing value into the organization that way, as your first focus, is a shift from the old model of, well, we'll figure out what our business is and then we'll throw some requirements down the IT channel and sooner or later it will emerge, right? As we've said, that's not going to cut it anymore. You need to have that ability to deliver through digital means right at the edge with your product decisions.
Dave Lounsbury, you mentioned earlier the concept of abundance of technology, and then Michael Fulton, you mentioned sort of the gorilla in the room, which is the new tools around artificial intelligence, machine learning, data-driven analysis. Before we close out and learn a little bit more about how to get involved with being a digital practitioner and contributing to that body of knowledge, it seems to me that in order to become more savvy about how to take advantage of the abundance of technology and the advances in analytics, that this requires a cultural and organizational shift as well, and permeates the entire organization. So the last point I'd like to bring out is, to what degree does a digital practitioner have to be responsible for changing the culture and character of their organization? And I'll open it up to the group.
I want to quote something I heard at the most recent Center for Information Systems Research conference at the Sloan School. And there are articles published on this, by Gene Ross, I think most people will know, who said that the time for digitization, for getting your digital processes in place, getting your data digitized, that's past. What's important now is that the people who understand the ability to use digital to deliver value actually start acting as the agents of change in their organization. And that, to me, that all of what Sriram said about strategy, helping your organization realize that can happen and giving them, through these leading practices, through this body of knowledge, a framework in which they can start making those decisions, and frankly lowering the barrier between the historical technologists and the historical business people, lowering that barrier and seeing them all as an integrated team, I think is the fundamental transition that we need to be leading people to in their organizations.
Very simple thing is, earlier we said that this is some other team's responsibility. We will wait for them to do their thing and we will start from where they left off, has been the mindset. Now, with the technology, we are able to permeate across organizational boundaries, and the person to bring out the cultural change should simply question, why should I wait for you? If you're not working for me, then I will take over, complete the job, and let you manage and run with it. There are two sides of the equation. We also have the DevOps model where I build and I own. The other one is I build it for you, you own and keep pace with me. So basically we want people to be able to question the status quo and show a small sample of what better could be. Those will drive the cultural shift and make it push leaders beyond their comfort zone that Venkat was talking about, to be able to accept different ways of working, show, and then lead.
So I can give a great example, and that's really, actually I can go back, nothing more effective than watching your own company go through that, right? And I said, I'm just building off and bringing millennials into the organization. today it is an organization that is basically what we call a solution hub in Oracle that is entirely staffed by college plus two folks who are working day in, day out on creating, or realizing the art of possibility through Oracle technology, and in a huge way complement the work of senior resources both in the pre-sales and the product side, and that has had a cumulatively, a force multiplier effect on how Oracle is able to present what it can do for its customers. So what we have seen here is an example of where we are able to see, native digital generation folks understanding their role as a digital practitioner, bringing the strengths into play that seamlessly not only complements the existing work done, it elevates the nature of how the rest of the senior folks who have been in the business for 10, 20 years are able to function. So as an organization, we are now able to deliver a more effective and a credible solution to the market, especially as Oracle is moving to the cloud. So that's a great example of how culturally, each player, doesn't matter if you're a college plus two or a 20-year person, can actually be a huge part of changing organizational culture. So digital practitioner is fundamental, and this is a great example of how an organization has accomplished that.
Michael?
Yeah, this is hard work, right? I mean, changing the culture of an organization is hard work, and that's why I think guidance like what we're putting together here with the digital practitioner's body of knowledge is invaluable. It gives us as individuals a starting point to work from to lead the change. And it gives us a place to go back to continue to learn and grow ourselves and to point our peers to as we try to change the culture of an organization. It's one of the reasons I really like what's being put together with the digital practitioner's body of knowledge and its use in enterprises like Nationwide. I think it's a really good tool to help us so that we spend our time focused on what's most important to us, in Nationwide's case being on our side for the members that we serve, but being focused on that while we transform the culture to better deliver against those business objectives more quickly and with agility.
All right, I'm afraid we're about out of time, but before we sign off, was there one last important thought somebody wanted to add?
Yeah, I just wanted to pick up on that culture change if we could. Culture change takes time, and one thing everybody should do when you think about your digital practitioners, don't look at the people today. Go look at the any app store and see the number of programming tutorials targeted at grade school kids. Think about how you're going to be able to effectively manage that incoming generation of digitally savvy people. The organizations that can do that, manage that workforce effectively, are going to be the ones that will succeed going forward.
I'm sorry, we're out of time. What stage within this process of body of knowledge are we at, and what should people be thinking about contributing? So looking for a little bit of a timeline and some milestones about what comes next as you're progressing towards your definitions and guidelines for a digital practitioner.
So first thing I'll mention, Dana, is that this group has been tremendously productive, and in fact, that digital practitioner's body of knowledge, we've mentioned a couple of times on this call, is in fact out and available for anybody to download at the Open Group Bookstore. If you look for the Digital Practitioner Body of Knowledge, publication S185, you will find it, and we're very open to getting public comments on that snapshot as we finish this body of knowledge. Of course, the best way to contribute to any activity at the Open Group is come down and join us, and go to www.opengroup.org. You'll see ways to do that.
What comes next, David, in the maturation of this digital practitioner effort? Body of knowledge, and then what?
I think long term, we already started discussing both how we work with academia to work this into the curriculums to train people who are entering the workforce. We're also starting, it's very early days, thinking about how we would identify such people with some sort of certification, badging, something like that. That will be things we'll be discussing in 2019.
Well, great. I'm afraid we'll have to leave it there. We've been discussing the creation of new guidance and a body of knowledge around how digital and IT professionals should approach their responsibilities. And we've learned how the Open Group is ambitiously seeking to close the gap between issues around IT education, business methods, and what it will take to really succeed in the new generation of digital business. For more information on this architectural approach, cultural change, and topics related to digital practitioners, do please check out the Open Group website, as David mentioned, at www.opengroup.org. And so please now join me in thanking our panel. We've been here with Venkat Nambiar, Director of Business Transformation, Enterprise and Cloud Architecture at Oracle. Thank you, Venkat.
Thank you, guys.
We've also been here with Sriram Sabesan. He's Consulting Partner and Digital Transformation Practice Lead at Connexium. Thank you so much, Sriram.
Thank you, Dana. This was an interesting conversation, and thanks for leading us.
Thank you. We've also been here with Michael Fulton, Associate Vice President of IT Strategy and Innovation at Nationwide Insurance and co-chair of the Open Group IT for IT Forum. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Dana.
And lastly, also thank you, David Lounsbury, Chief Technology Officer at the Open Group.
You're welcome, Dana.
And a big thank you as well to the Open Group for sponsoring this discussion. And also, of course, thank you to our audience for joining us. I'm Dana Gardner, Principal Analyst at Inter Arbor Solutions, your host and moderator. Thanks again for listening, and do come back next time.